Sure. Here is Part E of your HFY Sci-Fi story, written in for third person, using phrase simple and basic English, around 800 words, and formatted for easy reading. I'll present it directly below. If you'd like a downloadable document, version like .docs or .pdf, just let me know. The stars burned cold and silent above Epsilon 9. The colony was small, far from Earth, but it was home to nearly 200,000 people. They had built their lives there, farms on the edge of the forest, homes carved into the cliffs and domes that floated above the oceans. The sky was often pink at sunset, and the children loved to run through the tall grass fields after school. On this day, the sun was setting when the first alarm sounded. People stopped what they were doing. Some thought it was a drill. Others looked up at the sky and saw nothing unusual. But on the command tower, Governor Eli Carter stared at the screen in front of him. His face was pale. "This can't be right," he whispered. His assistant, Lisa, stood beside him. "Sir, long-range scanners picked up something coming from the outer belt. It's moving fast." Eli zoomed in on the data. The object was massive. No known ship registry matched it. It wasn't human. Then the first image came in. Dark ships. Hundreds of them. Maybe more. They didn't match any alien species the humans knew. They were jagged like broken glass floating in space. "Get me Unity Prime," Eli said, voice tight. "Now." Unity Prime was the central human command station, orbiting a distant planet. It controlled all military and civilian traffic across the colonies. If anyone could help, they could. But the signal never got through. Something blocked it. Then the first wave hit. A beam of light cut through the sky. Not sunlight. Not lightning. Something else. It struck one of the orbital defense stations. The station exploded in silence, torn apart in seconds. People screamed. Alarms blared. Families ran into shelters. The sky was no longer peaceful. Eli grabbed a radio. "This is Governor Carter. We are under attack. Repeat, we are under attack." He looked outside. Smoke rose from the ocean base. The second beam hit the northern dome. The force crushed it like an eggshell. Thousands died in an instant. "Get the civilians off-world," he shouted. "Launch every shuttle." Lisa's hands shook as she typed. Only 3 shuttles were ready. The rest were still docked near the spaceport, which was already burning. Outside, the enemy ships descended. They hovered low, casting shadows over the land. Strange machines dropped from their bellies, metal things with claws and eyes that glowed red. They landed and began moving toward the city. "What are those?" someone asked. Eli didn't answer. He was already running. In the control room, a technician yelled, "Sir, they're jamming us. We can't call for help." Eli grabbed a data chip. It held everything: logs, images, coordinates, voices from the attack. He shoved it into a hidden relay box. "Send this out," he said to Lisa. "Anywhere. Everywhere. Just get it away from here." She nodded, tears in her eyes. Where should it go? To Unity Prime, to Earth, to anyone who will listen. She pressed the launch button. The tiny probe shot into space, invisible against the black. Back on the ground, the metal creatures reached the city. They moved without sound. Where they stepped, fire followed. Buildings collapsed. People ran. Some tried to fight back, but bullets did nothing. Lasers bounced off their armor. Eli reached the last shelter. He pushed a child inside before turning back. "Stay safe," he told Lisa. She grabbed his arm. "Come with us." He shook his head. "Someone has to stay. Someone has to make sure they know what happened here." He walked back outside. The sky was filled with enemy ships. The air smelled like burnt plastic and ash. He stood in front of the main building, watching as the machines approached. He pulled out a small camera, turned it on. "If anyone sees this," he said, voice steady, "know that we fought. We didn't run, and we won't be forgotten." He kept the camera rolling as the machines closed in. Then, silence. End of Part I. Let me know if you'd like this in a downloadable Word or PDF format, or if you want to continue with Part 2. Sure. Here is how Part 2 of your HFY Sci-Fi story, written in our third-person troas, using simple and basic English, around 800 words, and formatted for easy reading. No headings, just plain text. The signal flew through space like a whisper in the dark. It was small, fast, and hidden deep inside a protective shell. The probe that carried it had no weapons, no defenses, just a single purpose: to survive. For days it drifted past asteroids, through cold voids, and past silent stars. It avoided detection by hiding behind planetary shadows and using dead zones where scanners couldn't reach. Then, finally, it reached Unity Prime. The massive station floated near the edge of human-controlled space. It was the heart of human defense, always watching, always listening. Thousands of officers worked inside, tracking threats, managing fleets, and keeping peace across hundreds of colonies. On the signal floor, a young tech named Mason was the first to notice it. "Commander Porter," he called out. "We got something." "Commander." Lena Porter walked over. She was tall, with short brown hair and tired eyes. She had been up all night reviewing reports when the alert came in. "What is it?" she asked. Mason played the file. Static filled the screen at first. Then came the image. It was Eli Carter. His face was covered in soot, his clothes torn. Behind him, smoke rose from burning buildings. "If anyone sees this," he said, voice shaking but strong, "know that we fought, we didn't run, and we won't be forgotten." Then the screen cut to black. Lisa's voice followed. She spoke quickly, listing coordinates, timestamps, and descriptions of the enemy ships. When it ended, there was silence. Porter stood still, her hands clenched into fists. "Pull up all records on Epsilon 9, she ordered. Another officer typed furiously. "Nothing since the last weekly check-in. They were fine 2 days ago." "Send a scout team," she said. "Already done. They'll arrive in 6 hours. Porter turned back to the screen. She stared at the frozen image of Eli Carter. Then she made a call, across the galaxy. Presidents, generals, and admirals picked up their phones. Emergency meetings began. War rooms lit up with red lights. In the United Earth capital, President Daniel Reyes sat in a dark room watching the same video. His face showed no emotion, but his fingers gripped the table tightly. "Are you sure this is real?" he asked. "Every detail checks out," replied Admiral Karen Moore. "Epsilon 9 is gone. Every scan we've sent shows nothing but debris." He looked at the image of the alien ships. "Do we know who did this?" Moore shook her head. "No match in any database, not Zilari, not Voron, not even the lost ones. Whoever they are, they're new." President Reyes stood up. "Activate Protocol 0. The room went silent. Protocol 0 was never meant to be used. It was the last resort, the final warning. Once triggered, it would shut down all non-military activity across human space. Mining ships would stop, research labs would lock down, trade routes would close, and every human warship, over 700,000, would receive one order: find them, fight them, destroy them. Back at Unity Prime, Commander Porter watched as the command spread through the network. Lights blinked across the galaxy map. Ships changed course. Stations sealed their doors. Entire fleets powered up their engines. She turned to Mason. "Send a message to all human worlds." He nodded. "What should it say?" She thought for a moment. Then she said, "One colony was destroyed. Now 700,000 warships will answer." He typed the message. It was short, it was simple, and it would echo across the stars. Far away, on a mining ship orbiting Titan, Captain Nate Holloway read the message. He stood up slowly. His crew looked at him. "Looks like we're going to war," he said. On Mars, Lieutenant Maya Collins closed her book. She had been trying to relax after a long mission. Now she grabbed her gear. "Let's go," she whispered. In the outer colonies, General Terry Blake stepped onto a waiting shuttle. He looked at the sky. "They heard us," he said. "Bad idea." 700,000 warships began moving, not for revenge, not for conquest, but because someone dared to hurt one of theirs, and humanity never forgot and never forgave. End of Part D. Let me know if you'd like this in a downloadable Word or PDF format, or if you want to continue with Part 3. Sure. Here's Part 3 of your HFY Sci-Fi story, written in third person, using simple and basic English, around 800 words, and formatted for easy reading. No headings, just plain text. The galaxy was waking up to what had happened. News spread fast, not just among humans but across alien worlds too. The attack on Epsilon 9 was no longer a secret. The message sent from Unity Prime had reached every human colony, every station, every ship. And now, the hunt had begun. Across thousands of systems, human ships moved like a storm. Mining vessels became scouts. Transport shuttles turned into supply lines. Even research labs joined the effort, scanning deep space for any sign of the enemy. On board the US Liberty, Captain Nate Holloway stood at the front of the bridge. He was tall, with short hair and tired eyes. Beside him, Lieutenant Maya Collins studied her screen. "We're picking up strange energy readings near the outer edge of Sector 9, she said. Nate leaned in. "What kind?" "Not sure. Looks like something. Artificial, big," he nodded. "Set course. Let's take a closer look." They weren't alone. All over the galaxy, other teams were doing the same. Some found nothing. Others picked up small clues, broken pieces of metal that didn't match any known species, faint radio signals in unknown languages or strange gravity distortions, but nothing solid. Until now, as the Liberty neared Sector 9, it dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Ahead, space looked empty. Stars floated in silence. But then Maya's screen lit up. "Captain," she said, voice low. "I'm seeing movement. Faint. Could be cloaked ships." Nate gave orders. "Raise shields, power weapons, stay quiet." The crew obeyed without question. Seconds later, a signal came in from another ship nearby, the US Marshal. Its commander, Major Ellis, appeared on screen. "We see it too," he said. "Suggest we send a probe." Nate agreed. They launched a small drone forward. It moved silently through space, scanning everything. Then suddenly the image changed. Something huge appeared on the feed. Not a ship, but a structure. Dark and jagged, floating in space like a broken tooth. "That's not ours," Maya whispered. "No," Nate said, "and I don't think it's friendly either." They watched as the drone got closer. More shapes appeared, long, thin things shaped like blades. They spun slowly in the dark. "Those look like weapons," Maya said. "Or traps," Nate replied. They waited, watching. Then, without warning, one of the spinning objects shot forward. It moved so fast the drone barely caught it. The screen went black. "Drone lost," Maya said. "Damn it." Nate turned to his crew. "We need more eyes out there. Launch 2 more probes, silent mode only." Within minutes, 2 more drones left the Liberties to moving in different directions. One stayed close to the strange structure. The other drifted farther out. It was the second one that found something. "Captain," Maya called. "Movement! Behind the asteroid belt." Nate looked at the new feed. Tiny lights blinked in the distance. Dozens of them. Maybe more. "Ships?" he asked. "Looks like it. But their signatures are weird. Not like anything we've seen before." Nate narrowed his eyes. "Send the data back to Unity Prime. We found something." Meanwhile, back at Unity Prime, Commander Lena Porter sat in the war room. The walls were filled, with screens showing reports from across the galaxy. Admiral Karen Moore walked in. "What do we have?" she asked. Porter handed her a tablet. "Possible enemy presence near Sector 9. Looks like they're hiding in deep space." Moore studied the images. "This is the first real lead we've had." "Yes. And if this is where they came from, then we need to know more. Moore nodded. I'll inform President Reyes. Porter stood up. We should send more ships. Quietly. Already on it. Back on the Liberty, Nate stared at the screen. You thinking what I'm thinking? Maya asked. Maybe, he said. If these guys attacked Epsilon 9, then they might still be here, watching us. She shivered. Great. He gave an order. Keep scanning, record everything. We're not leaving until we know who did this. Outside, the stars burned cold and distant. Somewhere out there, the enemy was waiting. And now, so were the humans. Of course. Here is part of your HFY Sci-Fi story, written in her third person, using how simple and basic English, around 800 words, with no headings or markdown. Space was quiet again, but not for long. On the USS Liberty, Captain. Nate Holloway leaned back in his chair. The lights on the bridge were dim. Everyone was tired, but no one dared to sleep. Lieutenant Maya Collins sat at her station, eyes fixed on the screen. She had been going through the data from the probes all night. Captain, she said suddenly, I think I found something. Nate walked over. What is it? She pointed at a pattern in the readings. Look here, there's a signal, very weak, it repeats every few minutes. Not random, not natural either. You think it's them? He asked. I don't know, but it's definitely artificial. And it's coming from deep inside Sector 9, Nate frowned. Could be a trap. Could be, she agreed. Or it could be a message. He thought for a moment. Send the data to Unity Prime. Let them decide what to do next. Meanwhile, back at Unity Prime, Commander Lena Porter stared at the same data on her screen. Admiral Karen Moore stood beside her. This could be our best lead yet. Porter nodded. We need someone out there. Someone who can get close and find out what that signal really is. Moore gave a small smile. I know just the team. Back on the Liberty, Nate got the order. We're being sent in, he told Maya. In where? She asked. To the source of the signal. We go silent. No comms unless it's urgent. Maya looked nervous. So we're just flying straight into whatever's out there? Looks like it. They prepared the ship for stealth mode. Shields were lowered to avoid detection. Engines ran on low power. Even the lights were dimmed. The Liberty moved slowly through space, slipping past dark rocks and silent stars. After hours of careful travel, they reached the source of the signal. And what they saw made them both freeze. It wasn't a ship. It was a structure, huge, black, and built around a dead star. Metal arms stretched out like claws. Strange lights pulsed along its surface. That's not just a base, Maya whispered. That's a factory. Nate didn't speak. He was too busy watching as ships began to form inside the structure. They weren't human. They weren't anything known. They were the same jagged ships that destroyed Epsilon 9. They're building more of them, Maya said, horrified. And sending them where? Nate muttered. Just then the signal changed. Words came through. Not in any language, but in patterns, almost like a code. Mayo tapped at her console. It's not a message. It's a command. For what? Before she could answer, the screen lit. Up with movement. Enemy ships started launching, hundreds of them. They're leaving, Maya shouted. They must have gotten word we were snooping around. Then we better not stick around, Nate said. Get us out of here. The Liberty turned hard and jumped into faster-than-light travel just as enemy fire streaked past. Back at Unity Prime, the alarm sounded. We've got movement, an officer reported. Enemy fleet is on the move. Porter looked at the map. Where are they heading? Not sure, but they're spreading out. President Daniel Reyes watched from his office. He picked up his phone. Tell our fleets to prepare for contact. If they come to us, we'll be ready. Meanwhile, Nate and Maya returned with their report. They're not just hiding out there, Nate told Commander Porter. They're building, planning, and they're getting ready for another attack. Porter looked grim. Then we beat them to it. She turned to the war room. Call every ship. Tell them to fall back to defensive lines. We're not chasing them anymore. Then what are we doing? She looked at the galaxy map. We're setting a trap. The humans had found the enemy. Now the enemy would learn what it meant to face humanity when it was angry. End of Part 4. Let me know if you'd like this, in a downloadable Word or PDF format, or if you want to continue with Part V, of course. Here is Part 4 of your HFY Sci-Fi story, written in a third person, using simple and basic English, around 800 words, with no headings or markdown. The humans didn't wait for the enemy to come to them. Within hours of learning about the alien factory, Commander Lena Porter gave the order. Every human warship within range was to move into position. Not for attack, not yet, for something smarter. On the OS Liberty, Captain Nate Holloway studied the galaxy map. It showed hundreds of human ships forming a wide circle around Sector 9. They weren't rushing in. They were waiting. "This doesn't feel like us," Maya said as she sat beside him. He looked at her. "What do you mean? We usually charge in guns blazing. Now we're hiding and planning? Feels different." He nodded. "Maybe we're growing up," she smirked. "Or maybe we're getting old." Back at Unity Prime, Admiral Karen Moore stood in the war room with President Daniel Reyes. "They're moving fast," Moore said, "but not toward us. They're spreading out again." Reyes watched the screen. "Then they know we found them." Moore agreed. "And they don't want to fight us head on." "Good," he said, "because that's exactly what we want." He turned to the others. "Set the bait. Let them think we're weak. Let them think we're scared." Porter stepped forward. "You want to lure them into a trap?" "Yes," he said. "We hit them where they least expect it, and we make sure they never forget who they messed with." Meanwhile, on the edge of human space, the alien fleet moved through the stars. Their jagged ships flew silently, scanning everything around them. They had learned from Epsilon 9. They knew humans were dangerous, but they also knew humans made mistakes and they were waiting for one. What they didn't know was that the humans had already made their move. In deep space, behind a line of dead stars, thousands of human ships waited. They floated in silence, engines off, lights dimmed, only their sensors were active. Among them was the Marshal commanded by Major Ellis. "How long do we wait?" his officer asked. "Until they pass right through the gate," Ellis replied. "Then we close it behind them." Far away, on another part of the battlefield, the Liberty hovered near an asteroid field. Nate and Maya watched as more alien ships passed by. "They're going somewhere," Maya whispered. "Yeah," Nate said. "Into our hands." Back at Unity Prime, Commander Porter gave the final signal. "All units prepare for Phase 1. Every ship powered up its weapons. Shields rose. Engines hummed quietly. Then came the order. Now, the trap snapped shut. Ships dropped out of stealth. Missiles launched. Beams cut through space like knives. The aliens had no warning. They thought they were hunting. Instead, they were being ambushed. Enemy. Ships exploded in silence. Others tried to turn back, but human fighters blocked their escape. The battle was fast and brutal. Nate led his team straight into the heart of the enemy formation. "Target their command nodes," he shouted. Mayo tapped at her console. "I'm reading a central control ship, big one." "Take it down," he ordered. A group of destroyers broke off and fired everything they had. The alien command ship tried to raise its shields, but it was too late. It burned in the dark. Without leadership, the rest of the enemy fleet fell into chaos. Some ships fled, others attacked blindly. None of it mattered. The humans had the upper hand. Back at Unity Prime, President Reyes watched the reports come in. "How are we doing?" he asked. Porter smiled. "They didn't see us coming," Admiral Moore added. "And now they know what happens when you hurt one of ours." Elsewhere on the alien homeworld, panic spread. Their leaders tried to send new orders, but the signal was weak, broken. Something had changed. They had thought humans were easy prey. Now they realized their mistake. Humans didn't just fight. They struck like thunder, and they never missed. End of Part V. Let me know if you'd like this in a downloadable Word or PDF format, or if you'd like to continue with Part 6. Of course, here is on Part 6 of your HFY Sci-Fi story, written in bare third person, using very simple and basic English, around your 800 words, with no headings or markdown. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. On the USS Liberty, Captain Nate Holloway stared at the broken remains of the enemy fleet floating in space. Pieces of alien ships spun slowly in the dark, glowing red from the heat of their final moments. That was fast, Maya said beside him. Too fast, he replied. She looked at him. You think it was a trick? He shook his head. No, they just weren't ready for us. Back at Unity Prime, Commander Lena Porter stood in the war room. Reports came in from all over the battlefield. Human losses were light. Enemy losses were total. President Daniel Reyes walked in, flanked by Admiral Karen Moore. What's the status? He asked. Porter pointed at the map. We've cleared Sector 9. Enemy presence is gone for now. For now? Moore asked. They'll regroup, Porter said. They have to. We hit them hard, but we didn't destroy everything. Reyes nodded. Then we keep pushing. Moore gave him a look. Sir, we should consolidate our forces first. Make sure we don't overextend, he smiled. I agree. But we also don't let them breathe, not after what they did to Epsilon 9. Meanwhile, on the alien homeworld, panic turned into fear. Leaders argued inside a dark chamber filled with pulsing lights. They had watched the battle unfold through distant sensors. They had seen their ships torn apart. They had felt the pain of every lost unit. One voice rose above the rest. We underestimated them, another spoke. Their technology is not superior, but their will, it is stronger than expected. A third added, they do not fight like others, they do not stop. There was silence. Then a new command was sent across the remaining networks. Build more, prepare more, learn more. The humans had struck, like thunder, but the storm wasn't over. Back in human space, the fleets began moving again, not to return home, but to hunt. Captain Holloway sat in his quarters aboard the Liberty. He read the latest report from Unity Prime. They're rebuilding, Maya said as she walked in. He looked up. Already? She nodded. They lost a lot out there, but they still have bases, factories, weapons. He sighed. Then we hit them before they finish. She smirked. I was hoping you'd say that. On Mars, General Terry Blake stood on a training field. Soldiers ran drills under a red sky. His phone buzzed. He read the message. Looks like we're going back out, he muttered. On Titan, Lieutenant, Maya Collins worked in a research lab. She studied the wreckage of an enemy ship brought in after the battle. This armor, she whispered. It's not just metal, it's alive. Her teammate leaned in. What do you mean? Some kind of hybrid tech. Part machine, part biology. Almost. Like it can repair itself, she typed quickly. If we can crack how it works, we might be able to break it. Far away on a hidden station orbiting a dead star, a small group of surviving alien ships gathered. They sent a signal. Not to their own leaders. To someone else. Someone older. Something watching from beyond the known stars. Back at Unity Prime, Lena Porter got the alert. New contact detected, an officer said. She stepped forward. Where? Deep space. Outside mapped territory. She frowned. Whoever they are, they're not alone anymore. President Reyes arrived a few minutes later. He looked at the screen showing the new signal. They called for help, he said. Porter nodded. Looks like. He smiled grimly. Then we better be ready for whoever answers. The humans had won the first major battle, but now the real war was about to begin, and this time, the enemy wouldn't come alone. End of Part 6. Let me know if you'd like this in a downloadable Word or PDF format, or if you want to continue with Part 7. Of course, here is War Part 7 of your HFY Sci-Fi story, written in the third person, using simple and basic English, around 800 words, with no headings or markdown. The war had changed. What began as a single attack on Epsilon 9 had become something much bigger. The humans had fought back hard and fast, and now the galaxy knew it. No more hiding, no more waiting. Humanity was not just defending its own, it was striking first. Back at Unity Prime, Commander Lena Porter stood in the central command room. The walls were filled with screens showing reports from across human space. Fleets were moving. New weapons were being tested. Factories ran non-stop. President Daniel Reyes walked in, flanked by Admiral Karen Moore. "What's our status?" he asked. Porter pointed at the map. "We've pushed past Sector 9. Enemy forces are scattered but not gone." Moore crossed her arms. "They're learning from us. Adapting." Reyes nodded. "Then we stay ahead of them." Meanwhile, aboard the US Liberty, Captain Nate Holloway reviewed the latest mission orders. Lieutenant Maya Collins sat beside him. "So, we're going in again?" He looked at the data. "Looks like it. Intel says there's a hidden enemy base near the outer rim." "You think they'll be ready for us this time?" He smirked. "They better be." The Liberty joined a small strike force, heading into deep space. Their job wasn't to fight a big battle. It was to find targets and mark them for the main fleet. On Mars, General Terry Blake oversaw the training of new soldiers. The war had changed everything. People who once lived peaceful lives now volunteered to fight. "They know what's at stake," Blake told his officers, "and they know we don't run." In Earth orbit, new warships were being built faster than ever before. The Carter-class Vanguard Rouse, named after the fallen governor of Epsilon 9, was the newest design. Heavily armed, highly mobile, built for one thing: vengeance. On Titan, Maya's research team made a breakthrough. "This alien armor isn't just tough," she said. "It heals itself over time." Her teammate frowned. "Like, living tissue?" "Kind of," she replied. "If we can disrupt the repair process, we might be able to break through their defenses." She sent the findings to Unity Prime. Back at command, Porter read the report. "Good work," she muttered. "Now, we have a way to win." Meanwhile, the enemy was changing too. After suffering heavy losses, the Virex Dominion regrouped. They built new bases, upgraded their ships, studied human tactics, but they also did something else. They reached out. Far beyond the known stars, another signal was sent, not to an ally, to something older, something stronger. Back in human space, the first signs of peace started to show. Epsilon 9 was being rebuilt. Survivors returned. Families moved back into homes that had been burned. Children played in the fields again. Above them, a line of warships floated silently in orbit, not to attack, but to protect. Nate Holloway stood on the surface, looking up at the sky. Mayo walked up beside him. "You thinking about what comes next?" she asked. He nodded. "We won. But this war isn't over. Do you think it ever will be?" He looked at the children running below. "Maybe not. But as long as we're here, we keep fighting." She smiled. "I guess that's what makes us human." Back at Unity Prime, a new alert flashed on the screen. "Unknown contact detected. Quadrant. Unknown." Porter stared at it. Moore walked in. "What is it?" She pointed at the message. "We're not alone anymore." Moore read the words. "Then we better be ready." The war had changed, but humanity never stopped. They didn't just survive. They endured, and wherever danger came from, near or far, they would always answer, because they were human, and they never forgot, and they never forgave. End of Part 7. Let me know if you'd like this in a downloadable Word or PDF format, or if you want to continue with the final part, Part 8. Of course, here is Part 8, the final part of your HFY Sci-Fi story, written in third person, using simple and basic English, around 800 words, with no headings or markdown. The stars burned cold and silent above Epsilon 9. The colony was alive again. Smoke had cleared, ruins had been rebuilt, and life had returned. Children ran through green fields once scorched by fire. Families gathered under pink skies at sunset. It wasn't the same as before. Too many had been lost. But it was a beginning. Above them, human warships floated in quiet watch. Not for war. Not today. But always ready, in Unity Prime, Commander Lena Porter stood alone in the observation deck. She looked out at the stars, thinking about everything that had happened. Epsilon 9 had been destroyed. Then 700,000 ships came for vengeance, and they found more than just an enemy. They found something watching from beyond the galaxy. She turned, as Admiral Karen Moore walked in. "We got the report," Moore said. Porter nodded. "From the outer edge?" "Yes. Whatever signal we picked up, it's gone now." "Gone?" Porter asked. "Or hiding," Moore replied. "Either way, we can't ignore it." Porter looked back at the stars. "No, we can't." Meanwhile, aboard the US Liberty, Captain Nate Holloway reviewed his latest orders. Beside him, Lieutenant Maya Collins leaned over the console. "New mission?" she asked. He handed her the message. "Something far out. Deep space. You think it's connected to what we saw before? Maybe. Or maybe it's something worse." She sighed. "Of course it is." Nate gave her a small smile. "That's our job." On Earth, President Daniel Reyes stood in front of a crowd. Behind him, a new monument rose into the sky, a statue of Governor Eli Carter, arms outstretched, eyes looking toward the stars. "We do not forget," he said into the microphone. "We do not forgive, but we endure." Cheers rose from the people below. In the colonies, on Mars, on Titan, humans kept moving forward, building, exploring, defending, but always watching the sky, because they knew someone else had seen what they could do, and someone else might come. Back at Unity Prime, a quiet alert blinked on a dark screen. Unknown contact detected. Location: unknown. Portable. Data showed no match. No known species. No clear origin. Moore stepped closer. "Should we send a team?" Porter didn't hesitate. "Yes. Silent approach only." Moore gave a short nod. "They won't see us coming." Outside, the stars shimmered like distant eyes, waiting, watching. Far away, near the edge of known space, the Liberty dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Nothing was there, just empty black. Until something moved. A shape, barely visible. Huge. Dark. It hadn't been there before. Mayo tapped at her console. "It's scanning us." "Can it see us?" Nate asked. "Not yet, but it knows something's close." He looked at the screen. "Then let's not stick around." He gave the order. Engines powered up. The ship slipped back into the void. Back at Unity Prime, the data came in. Porter studied the image. The shape was unclear, but the energy readings were off the charts. Moore stood beside her. "This isn't Virex tech." "No," Porter agreed. "It's something else. Something bigger. Probably." Moore looked at her. "What do we do?" Porter stared at the screen for a long moment. Then she said, "We keep watching. We keep learning. And if they come for us," here she smiled grimly, "we show them what happens when you mess with humanity." Back on Epsilon 9, a child pointed at the sky. "Look!" he shouted. People looked up. A single warship passed overhead, silent and fast, going where no one had gone before. Searching, preparing, waiting. Because the war had changed. But humanity had not. They still fought. They still protected. They still remembered. And they never, ever forgave. End of Part 8. Final part. Let me know if you'd like all 8 parts compiled into a downloadable Word or PDF document.